Hi, Namaste, Jai Hind everyone. So today in our channel we are going to see an in-depth analysis of geopolitical situation across the world. Before that we have one of our researcher who's an MBA in International Relations and Strategic Studies, Mahesh Aditya. He would be regularly coming into our channel giving you deep insights. Each one of your feedback is getting screened and we take it very very seriously. Mahesh is a new face, youngster. Please do support him. Do point out any improvements or suggestions you have to him. He personally reads all your comments and we would like more of you to come on board. People who are interested in geopolitics, who research it, open source, all of you are welcome. You can contact us in the email ID given in the description. So now let's move to the topic of today. So the world has seen, we call it as VUCA, volatile, uncertain and ambiguous. So in this situation, we saw a major war which broke out in last Feb 2022, that's Russia-Ukraine. And this year in October, we saw the Israel-Hamas conflict, which later got slightly escalated to the neighboring countries like Yemen, Jordan and Lebanon, but things are pretty much in control. But the warfare is limited to a certain location, geographical location, which is Gaza, but it is very very intense and it has got major ramifications across the world. We have seen protests and killings in Europe, in America, even in China, in almost all the countries have seen either a massive protest for or against Israel, or in a way there are killings, hate crimes across the world. So this is a major incident which we can't see as a very localized conflict in the Gaza region. Now, one good thing about this is today Hamas leader has announced that we are about to close for a compromise with Israel, which in a way is a good sign if this comes to an end. But that will be a kind of a temporary peace. Maybe this peace may be stable with a bit of minor skirmishes and events for maybe for next 3 to 4 years. Things would drastically change again. The region, other regional players like Saudi wants this conflict to end, UAE wants this conflict to end. Qatar in a way also is looking for the conflict to end because Qatar now is betting big time as a sports destination nation of the world. Saudi has its own plans for a non-oil economy, same goes for UAE. Now the one country which has been isolated in this part of the world is Iran. Now Iran is continuously flexing its military muscle. Now they have flaunted a new hypersonic glide vehicle based missile system and they have displayed it. They have claimed that it has got striking capabilities which clearly means that it can strike any part of Israel and any US bases which is based in the Gulf. And they are close to kind of acquiring a nuclear bomb. Certain reports say they already have built one. But for sure, one is a nuclear bomb, the fuel which is required, making a bomb, and second is the delivery mechanism. Delivery mechanism, we are 100% sure they have the capability to deliver it. Supersonic, even now they claim to have an hypersonic missile, and they do have cruise and ballistic missiles and UAVs. So delivery mechanism they do have. Whether they really have a nuclear bomb, if they have what is the yield of it, it's a big question mark, but they are aggressively moving towards that. Now as far as the Ukraine-Russia war is concerned, the war has been literally out of media coverage. When it is out of media coverage, it's clearly the big boss, the big daddy doesn't want it to be highlighted, which in this case is the American government. So Zelensky is not being seen, the green t-shirt man is not being seen for quite some time. If you compare the last year, if you see the Google's data, I think he's the second or third Google person in the world, Zelensky. This year he is not seen, his pictures are not there. The war is very underplayed. The so-called counter-offensive by Ukraine never happened. It was supposed to happen in August, then it got postponed to September. And they did some posting somewhere in October also, but nothing happened on ground. Russia is slowly progressing. They are holding their defenses very, very strongly. in pockets of the western part of the Nipur River, they are going into some sort of territory gain. But this is kind of a war of attrition. It's a stalemate. Russia is also coming out with a new alternative, cheaper weapons to take on Ukrainian forces. Ukraine forces right now has around weapon systems from 15 different countries deployed. But the combat fatigue has taken over the both sides. It's like, how long can we fight? The soldiers' will to fight also matters. That's a prime, the equipments and the weapons comes late. So, but do they really have the will to fight right now? I don't think so. They do have, because it's quite a fatigue. It's been almost more than 19 months now. So we can safely assume that the Ukraine-Russia conflict is in the last leg of its conclusion. The only thing is to work out the exit policy. NATO, how will it save its place? Will it call it as a NATO's victory, or an American victory, or a Russian victory? The truce agreement or the exit strategy for this war somewhere lies here. Because if you look at the European economy, it is going from bad to worse. The most common commodity like butter has seen a price rise of 175%, coffee, tea, the typical European consumption has all gone up by almost 75 to 80%. Rentals have gone up. Jobs have been either stagnant or it has come down. The cost of manufacturing is continuously going up. Inflation is up. So I don't think so. Europe would continue or would love to continue to support this war by providing financial and military aid to Zelensky's Ukraine. So they are arriving at a compromise for sure. Maybe this winters, till the end of this winters, it may extend. By next year, we can assume there will be some sort of settlement and compromise between the West and the Soviet Russian bloc. This will eventually come to win. And then Russia, when Putin said it's a special military operation, they would claim gaining some territory or liberation of certain territory from the pro-Nazi Zelensky forces. That's how they frame it. Vis-a-vis, Ukraine will also claim that Russia being a mightiest country, we withdrew, we stood as a nation, we fought against Russia, we saved our territory. So that's a narration, end of the day it's a narration. So we can wait for that. Maybe by end of Jan, we should expect this. Now, where will the geopolitics shift from here? Israel-Hamas was sudden, it was out of the textbook, it was out of syllabus actually. How much of Chinese involvement, how much of Iranian involvement, this all will maybe by mid of next year. But currently we need to see the geopolitical shift will again get back to Indo-Pacific. Now that is the place where the superpowers and aspiring superpowers and regional powers want to focus on. Be it India, be it China, be it America, be it any Quad countries or Western forces, they want to focus on Indo-Pacific. So we will after this setback by these two wars, we can clearly see that the focus will be back again in Indo-Pacific. China is upping up the ante. They are continuously investing on modernizing the navy. They are coming out with almost a ship, one or two ships, warships every month. They are ramping up their production. They are ramping up their nuclear stockpile. By 2030, they would have another 1,000 nuclear warheads as per the CIPRI's estimate. So China is upping their hand. China has got its own set of domestic issues. We have discussed that in multiple forums. The major ones being the real estate collapse. We really don't know what's the size of the bubble. But Evergrande alone is a tune of $3 trillion US, which is almost 75-80% of the Indian's economy. One real estate company collapse, the value of it is more than 70% of the India's GDP. So that's the size of the collapse we are looking at. Orange County, another company, they're also they're defaulted, they have not gone bankrupt per se. So we are seeing real estate collapse, we are seeing deflation, there are note takers, the prices are falling down, the manufacturers are feeling the hit. Now China has its strength of exports. Now exports to US has gone down, exports to the European nations have gone down because there is a lack of demand in both the locations, in both the continental places. Similarly, China has seen a drastic drop in terms of domestic consumption. Now that is where India gains. We are at a much better place. We are a domestic consumption driven economy. What we produce, what we import gets consumed here. We also rely on exports, but China relies predominantly on exports, and their domestic consumption is kind of an add-on to their economy. Now the domestic consumptions have gone down drastically. Their apartments, their flats, real estates is going unsold. There is a price drop since first time since 2015, and the price drop has been consistent. So the real estate prices have gone down by almost 4.5%, which is a massive drop in a given year for any country. So China also has managed that COVID by zero COVID policy. That's also backfiring. It has got a declining population. It has registered a declining population. Unemployment is in excess of 15% now. China really can't produce jobs anymore. And what China per se was relying on for so many years is when there is a slump or they want to decrease their unemployment rate, provide jobs, pump in money and start making roads and start making infrastructures, massive infrastructures, metro in middle of somewhere, but there are no actual real need for it. There is no actual consumption for it. And the return on investments of such mega projects is almost nil. So China is facing a heat locally. You would have heard Joe Biden mentioning Xi Jinping as a dictator in the APEC summit which was held in San Francisco last week. So the dictator per se has to keep their people busy. The people has to be prosperous. They cannot be left restless. If that is going to happen, your dictatorship will be questioned by a massive population, which is in the tune of 140 million people. That's not a joke. To divert that, China has to do something dramatically. That would be like a limited war, or an aggression with India, or an aggression with Taiwan, or even doing a military action on Taiwan. So China is kind of preparing for that. They have problems with Myanmar now. Myanmar junta army is facing a massive rebel. Chinese hackers have been thrown out of Myanmar. In fact, there is a news which was well hidden. There was a shelling which happened from Myanmar inside the Chinese territory. China called for immediate ceasefire between these two forces, junta and the rebel army. But things are not as good as what it looks for China. Yes, here and there they are giving their technological advancements might like the fastest internet connection which can transfer I think 10 GB of movie in a second or so. They have been flaunting missiles, they have been flaunting vertical and horizontal takeoff UAVs. So these things, technological might they are showing off, but the real fact is their economy is in a very bad shape and the domestic trouble is way too much for them to chew. They have bitten much beyond what they are capable of actually. So US is clearly focusing back on Indo-Pacific. Their COFA nations, it's Compact Financial Agreement. The COFA nations like Republic of Palau, Republic of Solomon, Republic of Marshall Island, Micronesia, Papua New Guinea. These 5 nations have become a core focus for America. So out of this, Palau, Marshall Islands, and the Micronesia. You can see that on the video. These 3 nations are very close and they have a very prominent, they are strategically placed in the Indo-Pacific region. So these nations also, they already have an COFA agreement with US, which means that US will take care of their security, US will establish their military bases. US has right to use their sovereign state for US and its allied troops. In return, these countries enjoy a security cover from US and also jobs and visas to the mainland US from these island nations. They're very small tiny island nations, but remember these are all in the Indo-Pacific region, very close to China, very close to Philippine Sea. So these are all undestroyable aircraft carrier. So study roughly says that if you want to secure this 3 lakh plus square kilometer of ocean area without these islands in place. Let's assume that these islands are not in place, US is not present in these islands, then it would cost them a lot of aircraft carriers, battlefield, battle groups and troops, lot of troop deployment. So the cost of it is $100 billion per year. but US spends around $2 to $3 billion per year in funding these nations. So you now understand what US exactly does, the scale of economics, the scale of war, the cost of war per se. So $100 billion per year versus $3 to $4 billion. They are happy to spend that $4 billion to retain this, because these are all the permanent aircraft carriers nature has given you. So America is dominating it. These agreements are due for renewal, but I am sure that they are not going to leave anything into choice as far as China is concerned, because China's biggest enemy are Palau Islands and Marshall Islands, which are two small nations which have recognized Taiwan. Even India doesn't not have recognized Taiwan as an independent nation, neither America, but this two nations does. They are facing the wrath of the PLA. So these nations, any which way, have to be secured by US. Now coming to the fourth and the fifth island nation, which is Solomon Island. Per se was under the control of Australia, but for Solomon Islands, the incumbent president Sogavare, he supposed to conduct these elections last November, I suppose, but he had issues, the internal issues in terms of internal security. So he went and signed an agreement with China, allowing 1,000 plus Chinese troops to safeguard Chinese descendants who live in Solomon Islands, and also to protect the government against quote unquote militants. Now the country is so small that the president can himself, the people out there know Sogavare, the country's president, in and out. They day in and day out, they do interact with them. So it is for him to delay the elections. He has done such an agreement, inviting China into it. So there is an Australian military and paramilitary force which is present in Solomon Islands. Now they have made an agreement with China. So this is kind of a setback for the Quad nations, especially US and Australia, who are directly linked to this particular location. So we need to see how the geopolitics fall out here. Next comes the island nation, which is Papua New Guinea, PNG, which is a much bigger island nation with almost 17 lakh population. They have been very, very friendly with India. In fact, their military armed forces officers get trained in the Officers Training Academy in Chennai. So they have a very, very high goodwill about India, about Indians. They love Indians. The best example is, you would have seen when our Prime Minister Modi went and landed there. Their president came, hugged him, and then he touched his feet as a mark of respect. That is purely because when this COVID was happening, we were all talking about those deaths which is happening in Italy, in Europe, various other European nations, India, US, China, Japan, South Korea and whatnot. But these tiny nations are also there. They also exist on planet Earth. They are also human beings. Nobody spoke about them. That's the time with Vaccine Mike 3 program. India reached out these small island nations with our free vaccines. Their precious lives were saved. So that's the goodwill we share with that country. So Papua New Guinea, PNG is one of an important nation to counter China in Asia Pacific, Indo-Pacific region. So US also has established a good relation. India has a very, very good relation with them. If everything goes well strategically, we will soon see an Indian naval base in PNG that would directly check China. So the Quad nations, not as Quad as a security group, they're still resistant. It's time they call out Quad as a security group rather than, making it diplomatic with the cover of energy, cooperation, infra, technology and so on. So this has to be called out as a security alliance. That's the only way. China and their allies, they don't hesitate to call it as a security alliance. It's about us who should initiate this. India is a major gainer from Quad. So India needs to initiate this and call out Quad as a security alliance. So clearly by mid of next year, the focus will be again back to Indo-Pacific. The world will move on from here. These two wars will come into their logical conclusion by end of this year maybe. But new fronts may open up because China would want this focus of these countries, especially US and other NATO countries, as far as away from China. So which is like a Middle East, they would wanted to put it in Africa, they want US to commit in Africa, elsewhere in Europe, maybe with Russia. Russia also is equally feeling the heat of the war. They don't say it openly, but the backdown negotiations with the US is already on. So the Ukraine-Russia war, we expect that to come close to its conclusion very soon, maybe by Jan. And same goes for the Israel-Palestine conflict. So let's shift our focus back to the Indo-Pacific region, how geopolitics falls out here with more data and more interesting videos. Thank you all. Jai Hind.